Ohio State wins the national championship. We're going to talk about it next. It's the Krug Show, brought to you by Pig and a Pickle and Mancini's. Let's go. Well, we're off and running. It's the Krug Show. Hope everybody's having a great night. Happy January the 21st. It's 8:21 on the West Coast, 11:21 back east. We're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. We're also brought to you by Sharp Corners Sports Cards and Collectibles. They're at 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove, California on the Monterey Peninsula. My friend Anthony Catania is at 831-521-5264. And last but certainly not least, Mancini's Sleep World is a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. They offer a 120-night guarantee with a range of brands and price points. Man, I love my Mancini's bed. With Mancini's, you get free next-day delivery. Click the link below or go to sleepworld.com and find a bed that works for you. Whether you shop online or visit in store, use the code KRUG10, K-R-U-E-G 10, and you'll get 10% off your total order. That's KRUG10 in store or online at sleepworld.com. And thanks to Mancini's for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. All right, we didn't just win tonight. We covered. We won and covered. Oh, and it was a rough cover at the end there. I took Buckeyes minus the 9, and they were up 31-23 after the 2-point conversion. And so I thought, oh, man, that's it. 8-point game. They're going to get a couple first downs, and they're going to run out the clock, or they're going to not get a couple first downs, give the ball back to Notre Dame. And then Notre Dame is going to try to even make it a tighter game than 8. And I was going to for sure lose. But they went up top to Jeremiah Smith, and they wound up kicking that last field goal to make it 34-23. And so the Buckeyes win the national championship, not by 8, but by 11. And they cover the 9. And so winner for yours truly. So I'm feeling pretty good after the win tonight. Wow. I don't know how you guys feel about the college football playoff. I love it. Now, I know a lot of people were disappointed, but look at it this way. Tonight, we had a battle for the national championship between two teams. If there had only been a Final Four, would not have even been in the running. And that is where we needed to get. Notre Dame was the 7 seed. The Buckeyes were the 8 seed. And what I love about other sports, the NFL, MLB, the NBA, the NHL, more than I loved about college football was that in college football, the beginning of the year matters a ton, but it's like late in the year. I mean, it's like who's playing the best late in the year. That is coaching. That means your team got better. That's the whole nature and name of sports. You want to be playing your best late in the year. That reveals that you have good coaches and good players and a good plan. And so, like right now, the NFL is going to reward the Washington Commanders for playing really good football late in the year. It's not like you get some pass because you played well early. You have to be playing well late. Well, in a lot of these past situations with the college bowl system and everything, it's like, you won some big games in September, maybe you won a big game in October, and maybe you won against some one-sided opponents or easy teams late in the year, but you don't necessarily have to be really playing great late in the year. Ohio State lost to Michigan at home in the Horseshoe, and their season was dangling by a thread. Ryan Day was going to be fired. This was going to be a colossal screw-up for the Buckeyes, and what did they do? They got up off the canvas, and they showed up, and they kept playing. They kept working. They kept grinding. I mean, think about it. You beat Akron, you beat Western Michigan, you beat Marshall, you beat Michigan State, you beat Iowa. They lose to Oregon 32-31 in a barn burner earlier this year in Autzen Stadium. That was in, second week in October. Then from that point, Buckeyes beat Nebraska. They beat Penn State in Happy Valley. They beat Purdue. They beat Northwestern. They had a good, tough game against Indiana on paper, and they smoked them 38-15. And then they were Saturday, November 30th, and they were headed to the Big House, or headed to the Horseshoe against the Wolverines. And they were big favorites. The Buckeyes were, and Michigan came out and absolutely gutted the Buckeyes. Beat them 13-10. It was 10-10 at halftime. There was only a field goal in the second half, but Michigan ran 42 times for 172 yards. And Khalil Mullings had 32 carries for 116 and a touchdown in that game. And they just ran it right down Ohio State's throat and changed the whole season. And at that point, I think a lot of people were like, oh, man, Ohio State is done. They're cooked. But they beat Tennessee 42-17 in the college football playoff quarterfinal in the Rose Bowl, or in the I guess the first round. That game was in Columbus. And then they beat Oregon in the Rose Bowl 41-21, and they just absolutely came out and took Oregon apart from the beginning. Then they beat Texas 28-14, and they get set up with Notre Dame, and Notre Dame had some magic. Notre Dame's one of the best coached teams in all of football. They're a much better team than the team you saw tonight because they were down a bunch of players. Riley Mills is one of their best players. He didn't go. They were down a couple offensive linemen. Jeremiah Love is not nearly the player right now as he was a month ago before the injury. They're just not quite the same team. Morrison, the corner who's going late first, maybe early second. Ben Morrison, he didn't play. So, I mean, they weren't the same team late in the year. But Riley Leonard has got guts. And they come out in this game, and whoa, that first drive. First of all, Notre Dame's season's even almost more amazing. They lost to NIU and then went 13-0 after losing to Northern Illinois. They lost to Northern Illinois and then went 13-0 from that point. But in this game, Notre Dame gets the ball first. First play of the game, Jeremiah Love tackled for a loss on the first play of the game. And then they start running Riley Leonard. 7 yard run for Riley Leonard up the middle. Then on 3rd and 3, Riley Leonard runs up the middle for the first down. He threw a couple passes, and then he gets to 2nd and 3 from the 48. He runs again. They get to 4th and 1 from the 46. Riley Leonard runs for 3 yards again. I mean, they came out 3rd and 1 from the 19. Riley Leonard ran for 6 yards. Riley Leonard ran on 2nd and 8 from the 11, down for 4 yards, down to the 7. Riley Leonard on 3rd and 3 ran for 2 yards. And on 4th and 1 from the 5, Riley Leonard runs it in for a touchdown. 18-play, 75-yard drive, 7-0 Notre Dame. And you're sitting there going, what? Is Notre Dame going to be able to beat the Buckeyes? But it was just too much Buckeyes. Will Howard is just too good. The K-State transfer, 17 of 21 for 231, 2 touchdowns. He also ran 16 times for 57 yards. But it's the combo. I mean, the Buckeyes don't have one NFL running back. They've got 2 NFL running backs. Travion Henderson is awesome. He's probably going to be a second-round pick. He was fantastic against Texas. He carried 12 times for 49 yards. The star in this game was Quinshon Judkins, the Ole Miss transfer, who runs so hard. He doesn't have quite the breakaway speed of Henderson, but he runs so hard. He's got great contact balance. He's almost impossible to bring down. Judkins carried 11 times for 9-1 a carry. 11 carries for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, including the 70-yard breakaway run he had. So Buckeyes ran for 214. They ran for 5.2 a carry, and they stopped Notre Dame's run. Notre Dame only ran for 2 yards a carry. Riley Leonard led Notre Dame in rushing with 40 yards on 17 carries. Jadarian Price, 3 carries for 13 yards. Jeremiah Love did nothing. He had 4 carries for 3 yards. And they said in the pregame, Jeremiah Love is feeling the best he's felt since the playoffs began. And I thought, uh-oh, because this guy's NFL. I mean, this guy is a big-time back. And that was just a bunch of crap because obviously he wasn't feeling that good. Otherwise, he would have gotten more than 4 carries. He was still wearing the big brace. He suffered a pretty serious knee injury a couple of games ago, and he's gutting it out. And then for the Buckeyes, I mean, they just have talent everywhere. Jeremiah Smith would be like a top 5 pick in the NFL draft if he were coming out, but he's a freshman. He's incredible. He's 6'3", he's 220 pounds. He looks like this guy was in high school last year. The guy looks like Julio Jones. He's like T.O. or something. He had 5 catches for 88 yards and a touchdown, including a 56-yarder. Emeka Egbuka, who's going to be a first-round pick as well. Another really good receiver. 6 catches, 64 yards. Carnell Tate caught a couple balls. Judkins caught a couple balls out of the backfield. G. Scott, the tight end, caught a ball. Just too much. Buckeyes are just too much. They got, Howard's going to play in the NFL. Judkins is going to be a second-round pick. Henderson's going to be a second-round pick. Jeremiah Smith's going to be a first-round pick. Emeka Egbuka is going to be a first-round pick. They got first-rounders on their O-line, on their D-line, at linebacker, and the secondary. I mean, it's just Buckeyes are absolutely stacked. For Notre Dame, Jaden Greathouse had 6 catches for 128 yards and 2 touchdowns. Mitchell Evans, the tight end, who I'd love to see the Niners grab. He had 4 catches for 52 yards. He played pretty well. Notre Dame at one point, the real killer was Notre Dame played for the field goal, and then Mitch Jeter missed the field goal, banged it off the bar. So that was rough because Notre Dame Marcus Freeman was debating, do we go for the touchdown? Do we go for the field goal? He's like, I need 2 scores. I'll go for the field goal. Sends out the kicker for the chippy, and he misses it. So that was a rough break. But this was an entertaining game. I'll give Notre Dame credit. They didn't have Riley Mills. They don't have a lot of their guys. And they still showed up and they played. That was a representative effort. They battled an incredibly talented Buckeye team. And the Buckeyes on defense, you got Chip Kelly calling the plays on offense. As I said, you got 2 NFL running backs. You got 2 NFL receivers. You got an NFL quarterback, not necessarily a starter, but a backup. And then on defense, they got all kinds of guys that are going to get drafted. Cody Simon is going to be probably a day 3 pick. He led them tonight with 8 tackles. Sonny Styles, the linebacker, 6 tackles and a sack. He's been a really good player for them. JT Tomolo or Tuamaloa, the edge rusher. He's a second-round pick, third-round pick. Caleb Downs is a star in the NFL. He's an underclassman. He's sticking around. But Tyleek Williams, the big defensive tackle, is a monster in the middle, 2-gapper, great feet. Davison Igbenozum, the corner, going to be probably a second or third-round pick. Denzel Burke, the other corner, going to be like a third-round pick. They get Jack Sawyer is going to go in the 3rd or 4th round. They just got dudes. They got all kinds of guys. They really do. And the Buckeyes are just loaded. And you could kind of see it. Once the playoffs started, you could see, oh, yeah. Nobody's beating Ohio State. I could see that after the Tennessee game. I'm like, oh, yeah, no, Ohio State's on a different level. Because there's no way you can beat them. They can only beat themselves. Howard can run. He can throw. He's big. He's strong. The one thing was kind of funny is Herb Street at one point said, the Buckeyes never fumble. And on the next play, they fumbled. Egbuka got the ball forced out. And then it sounded like Herb Street wanted to kill Fowler when Fowler brought up, you just said they don't fumble. And you could tell. These guys take themselves very seriously, and they do not want to be like second-guessed or questioned or made to look bad. It's not it's the bounce of the ball. I mean, it's anything can happen. I mean, it's what he said wasn't any less true. The Buckeyes didn't fumble a lot this year, but it was like they jinxed him because they fumbled on literally the very next play. So, there were a lot of good players in this game that if you're the 49ers, you'd love to have. I mean, that's for sure. I mean, Ohio State the Niners have a bunch of backs, but I would love then this is a great running back draft. But man, I'd love to have Judkins. I mean, I love how hard he runs on the goal line. He's just incredible. And Jeremiah Smith someday is going to be just an epic NFL receiver. I mean, he might be one of the best to come along in a long, long time. By the time he comes out, he'll probably stay 2 more years and then come out after his junior year. But Ohio State wins the national championship. They were clearly the best team. I don't think there's any question about that. They were the best team, and it really showed. And Notre Dame had a fake punt attempt in the third quarter, and Faison dropped it. It was thrown incomplete. Notre Dame missed that field goal, as I said. There were some things that if they had just broken a little differently for Notre Dame, they could have won this game. And as I said, they fought, they clawed. Freeman's a great coach. The special teams coach is a great coach. Notre Dame's really well coached. It's an awesome program. I mean, obviously, it's Notre Dame, but the Buckeyes are on a different level. The Buckeyes, especially in the transfer portal. Now that you got the transfer portal, it's like, the top teams are always going to wind up with key guys at the skill positions. And then a team like Ohio State, just so stacked, so loaded. They literally have 6 or 7 guys that will be drafted in the first 3 rounds of the draft. So, but this was a battle tonight that we wouldn't have gotten without the college football playoffs, because this was a battle between the 7th and the 8th seeds in the first ever 12-team college football playoff. I don't know how you guys feel about the playoff. I know there were some people that didn't like it, and the first games weren't close. It's going to be hard for the teams to go on the road and beat the teams beat those top seeds who get to host games. It's going to be hard to go into Columbus or anywhere. It's going to be hard to go into Happy Valley. It's going to be hard to go in to any of these really powerful programs where the atmosphere is overwhelming. It's going to be really hard to go in there late in the year with a playoff on the line and upset those teams. I mean, I don't want to say it's an automatic win, but it's close to it. It's close to it for sure. But these were 2 really, interesting seasons for Ohio State and Notre Dame. Notre Dame got that season opening win against Texas A&M, and then September 7th they lose to Northern Illinois. And it was an amazing thing because Notre Dame paid $1.4 million to make the trip to South Bend. Notre Dame paid Northern Illinois to come to South Bend, and then the Huskies, as a 28.5-point underdog, beat the Irish. And at that point, the Notre Dame's playoff odds were 32%. But man, the next week, Notre Dame responded. They put up 66 against Purdue. They beat 3 teams in the top 25. They beat Louisville. They beat Navy. They beat Army. They won 10 games by double digits. And they got better and better and better, and that's what a well-coached football team does. They consistently get better, and that's what Notre Dame did all year. And they had a good defense. They forced a nation-leading 32 turnovers. They forced one tonight, and they entered the playoff as the number 7 seed, and they beat Indiana in comfortable fashion in South Bend, and then they beat Georgia 23-10. Georgia's probably as talented as any team in the country. They're just not as well coached or as buttoned down as Notre Dame. And then Notre Dame beat Penn State by 3 on the last minute interception and field goal. And they got into this game. And I thought there was a chance that the Buckeyes would blow them out. And it was a 9-point spread. And I was like, God, I rode Notre Dame all in the second half of the year. I'm like, am I going to go against them in the national championship game? But you got to go with your instincts. And, you look around and you see all, Denzel Burke and Travion Henderson and Egbuka and Howard. And then the Buckeyes landed one of the top transfer portal classes, including having Will Howard come from K-State. And then they signed a top 5 class, including the number 1 prospect in Jeremiah Smith. And, I mean, I thought the Buckeyes looked like they were better than Oregon when they lost to Oregon in October. And, the Ducks came into the college football playoff undefeated and ranked number one. And then when Ohio State took Oregon down the way they did, I thought, oh, this is it. This is Ohio State's year. So really an amazing thing. I mean, an amazing thing to see. Sports is only as good as the stories. And when Ryan Day's team went into the Michigan game and Michigan beat them for the fourth year in a row, and the game ended and there was pepper spray and police escorts and all this talk about whether Ryan Day was going to be fired and could he ever lead the Buckeyes to a national championship. And I mean, there was so much negativity around that program and how he somehow closed ranks, convinced his guys, did a sell job, got into the film, and they come out and dominated number 9 Tennessee, dominated number 1 Oregon, beat Texas, Oregon, and Tennessee by an average margin of almost 20 points. I mean, they had one of the hardest schedules in the country, the Buckeyes did, according to ESPN's FPI. They finished the regular season 10-2. They easily could have been 12-0. So good for Ryan Day. I mean, he got promoted in 2018 to take over for Urban Meyer. The guy has done nothing but win. 69-10 record, 49-5 in the Big Ten, but 1-4 against Michigan. And you know what? John Cooper and others have been fired because they won a lot of games, but they couldn't beat the Wolverines. That's part of the gig in Ohio State. You can win a bunch of games or you can beat Michigan. But if you don't do one of those two, you could lose your job. So Ryan Day is 1-4 against Michigan. How about that? 1-4 against Michigan, 48-1 against the rest of the Big Ten. I mean, it's amazing. The guy makes $10 million a year, second to only Lincoln Riley, who makes $10 million a year, a little bit over for USC. He's fifth nationally in what he makes, and the guy runs a hell of a program. He really does. And then, I got to shout out Marcus Freeman as well, because Marcus Freeman was promoted from defensive coordinator to head coach in 2021 when Brian Kelly jumped to LSU. And they signed him. Notre Dame signed Freeman to a 6-year contract in December that goes through 2030. And it's supposed to be the most lucrative contract of any head coach in college football without a national title on their resume. So huge signing for sure for him. And he's locked up. He's going to be there for a while. If you remember Freeman, he was a linebacker at Ohio State. 2004, 2005. I think he graduated 2008. And then he was with the Chicago Bears in the NFL, the Bills, the Texans, and then started his coaching career at Ohio State as a grad assistant in 2010. And, I'll say this. I mean, it's amazing that they got this far because Riley Leonard can't really throw the ball deep. I mean, I like Riley Leonard, and he's a great college player, and he's fun to root for. But Notre Dame had just 5 pass plays of 40-plus yards all year. And they ran him like he's Michael Vick, and he's not that fast. So, the two quarterbacks, I thought that was going to be interesting tonight. Howard is much more of a downfield guy. He had 26 completions this year of 30-plus yards. That was tied for 4th in the nation. So, really two incredibly talented football teams. And, the biggest problem I thought on paper for Ohio State coming into this game was Jeremiah Love, the sophomore running back from St. Louis. He's strong as hell. He's fast as hell. The guy breaks tackles. He had 19 touchdowns. Him and Leonard scored 35 of the team's 73 touchdowns on the year coming into this thing. But he had the knee injury in the regular season finale, and then he had a flu situation in the going into the college football first round of the playoffs. But, he scored on that 98-yard touchdown 4 minutes into the Indiana game and kind of set the tone there. And then the injuries, I kind of took him out of it. And I thought, okay, Jeremiah, I spent a lot of time thinking, is Jeremiah Love going off? And I thought for sure, he's going to have a big day. He's going to have a big day. And in the pregame, they're like, he's totally over his injury. And I'm like, oh, man, maybe I got the wrong side here. And then he just didn't do anything. So I'll tell you, too, if the 49ers are looking for safeties, there were two outstanding safeties in this game. The Ohio State sophomore Caleb Downs is obviously not in the draft, but he's going to be a great player. I mean, an incredible player. The guy who is in the draft, though, is the senior for Notre Dame, Xavier Watts. And he's a tremendous player. I mean, he's an Omaha, Nebraska kid who led the nation this year. He had 13 interceptions over the past 2 seasons. He had 6 this year. So he has been an absolute ball hawk the last couple of years. And Watts made a couple big plays, but he also got pushed around a little bit. And he didn't make the big play. And Xavier Watts often does make the big play. So I was kind of worried. Now, you know what? He may step up and have a huge impact on this game, but it didn't happen. So Ohio State gets the win. They now lead the all-time series against Notre Dame 7-2. These are two of the best programs in the country. For the Buckeyes, they win their first national championship since 2014, when the third-string quarterback Cardale Jones led them to a win over Oregon in the first season of the 4-team playoff. For the Irish, they haven't won a national championship since Zorich and the boys in '88, since Lou Holtz, who was there tonight. It was great to see Lou Holtz. Lou Holtz, and the Irish won the 1988 national championship. They were undefeated, and they got a big win in the Fiesta over West Virginia. Notre Dame's won 13 national championships, and I thought there was a chance they would get 14 tonight, but it was not to be. And as far as supplying people to the NFL in the Common Era draft, so that's since the Super Bowl, since 1967, Ohio State's had 330 players drafted. Notre Dame is close behind at 319. So these schools produce players like nobody else, really, for the most part. When you look about consistency through the years, Buckeyes have 78 first-round picks over that span, including 3 number 1 picks overall. Their most recent first-rounder was Marvin Harrison Jr., who was the 4th pick last year. So Georgia, by the way, set the record for the most players selected in a single draft with 15 in 2022. So Dane Brugler, who I just traded texts with last week, and he's going to come on the Krug show here in a couple weeks. He said at the beginning of the year that he had draftable grades on 15 Ohio State prospects. So he says there'll be 5 Buckeyes to go in round 1, 7 will go in the first 2 rounds. So, it's really, 2 very different schools. Notre Dame was founded in 1842. Ohio State was founded in 1870. And tonight, the Buckeyes get the national championship over Notre Dame. All right, let's hit the chat and see what people have to say. MF49 says, this game is boring me to death. I'm going to go watch Brandon Staley backstretch videos. MF49, Notre Dame had a good year. We got this one, Macchiano, Notre Dame defense sucked. Well, they missed a couple key guys for sure. We got this one from Macchiano. It says, Riley Leonard looking good, and Larry the Kid has an arm. He's mobile, and he's got heart. He doesn't really have much of an arm. I'll debate you on that one. He is mobile. He's a hard worker. He started at Duke. He's resourceful. I mean, they used him like he was incredible, like an incredible runner. And he's not an incredible runner, but they run him a lot. And, he seems like he's got kind of somewhat spindly legs and seems like it wouldn't be a smart thing. But I'll tell you this, that's a tough kid. That is a tough kid. Now, I don't think he's anything more than backup material in the NFL. But I'd like to have him, and he would be in my quarterback room next year from the Niners. Give me Brock. Give me like a Zach Wilson, like a reclamation project guy. Give me Tanner Mordecai, and give me a guy like Riley Leonard in the 7th round or undrafted to compete with Tanner Mordecai. I'd be happy with that quarterback room next year. We got this one from Tiger Tank 06. What does Notre Dame need to do in order to win another natty? What areas need to be addressed? Oh, they're on the right path. I mean, their key was getting Freeman signed. Freeman is a great coach. He's an incredible recruiter. I think they're set. I think they're gonna play in the deep end of the pool with the big boys for the foreseeable future. The key was getting Freeman signed, because the NFL was gonna come calling. There was a lot of talk even just a couple weeks ago that Ben Johnson, who went to the Bears today, that the Bears had interest in Marcus Freeman. But Notre Dame smartly signed him up long term, and it was wise on their part. He's one of the best coaches in the country. Joe Schmo says Irish almost had it. Joe Celentano says Cal Poly football needs to hit the portal and NIL cash. Cal Poly has somebody, by the way, that's in this draft. I saw that the other day. Cal Poly has some player that's in this draft. I forget his name, but they do have somebody. Joe E says Larry Mystic Kruger hitting all these wagers. It was a good weekend. It really was. It was a good last 6 weeks. I have been hot as far as this weekend in the NFL. In the first game, I took the Chiefs on the teaser to the under, and that covered. I lost in the night game because I took the Lions on the teaser to the over. It went over, but as we all know, the Commanders ruined that. And then on Sunday, I just went moneyline parlay Eagles-Bills. And I parlayed it, and I was nervous because the Rams played well, and heck, that Ravens game was a coin flip either way, but that covered. Eagles-Bills covered on the parlay. Next week, as far as the conference championships, just taking a peek, I like the Commanders. I'm going to take the Commanders this week. I'm going to take the Commanders in the 6.5. I like it. I like it a lot. I like Washington to win. I like Washington maybe to win outright. I mean, I'm thinking about taking them on the money line, just not even messing with the spread, just taking the Commanders on the money line. The Bills-Chiefs is tough. How do you go against Mahomes? They're Kansas City's 2-point favorites. Chiefs are 8-0 at home. Chiefs are 15-2 on the year. The Bills are only 5-4 on the road. So, I like Buffalo. I love Josh Allen. And I think this is going to be – I thought this was going to be Josh Allen's year. But now, after watching Buffalo this week, I don't see them beating Mahomes in Kansas City. But, here's the thing about Kansas City. If you go back, Kansas City didn't play well this week. Houston, they beat Houston, but Houston ran for 5 yards a carry. They beat Houston, but Kansas City only averaged 2.3 a carry. Kansas City didn't run the ball well in this game. Travis Kelce had a great day, 7 catches for 117, but their receivers totally got shut down. Mahomes threw for under 200 yards. It wasn't a vintage game. I mean, Kansas City had 212 total yards, and Houston had 336. So, Kansas City's not running the ball well. Kansas City made fewer mistakes. The refs bailed them out. 8 penalties for the Texans. A couple of them were truly bogus. Only 4 for Kansas City. But that's it. Kansas City was 2 for 5 in the red zone. That's how they got it done. They got 2 touchdowns in the red zone, and Texans only got 1. And Fairbairn missed a field goal. So they didn't pick off C.J. Stroud, but Mahomes didn't turn it over. The one thing about Kansas City, is they have mastered the winning formula, which is everybody always talks about make a play, make a play, make a play, make a play. In reality, if you want to win in the NFL, it's avoid making a negative play. More so than make a play. Just don't screw it up. I was looking at the teams that won this weekend. The 4 teams that won this weekend, Kansas City, Buffalo, Philadelphia, and Washington, were a combined plus 10 in turnovers. Plus 10. How do you win in the NFL? You don't turn it over. You don't turn it over, they do turn it over, and you win. That's how you win in the NFL. There's only so many possessions. So you can't turn it over. You cannot turn over the football. Tom Brady, listening to him, I think he's terrible as a broadcaster. I love Tom Brady, but I think he's terrible as a broadcaster. But he does say a few things a game that reveal his mindset and his mentality as a player. And a lot of times he'll be more negative about the quarterback that makes the negative play than he is positive about the quarterback that finds a way to make a positive play. Because he knows at the end of the day, you can't make negative plays and win. You have to eradicate the negative play part of your game from your game, or you won't win consistently in the NFL. So what does that mean for Brock Purdy? Stop turning it over. Stop turning it over. Brock Purdy didn't throw those late interceptions in the fourth quarter. The 49ers probably would have won 2 or 3 more games. They probably would have been a playoff team. As even though Ayuk was hurt, even though CMC was down, even though Trent, even though all the tragedies, even for all the injuries, all the adversity, if Brock Purdy just takes a little bit better care of the football, the Niners probably still go to the playoffs. Taking care of the football means a ton, means an absolute ton. Couple supers here. Tony B says, Will Howard to replace Purdy. Keep the quarterback cheap. You know, I liked him at K-State, and I like him a little bit here. He's definitely a big kid who can run. I don't love him, though. There's something not there. There's something not right about Will Howard. He's big. He's fast. He's athletic, but I don't love he made a couple of really nice throws, but I watched a lot of Will Howard this year. I like him. I don't love him. To me, he's a better talent than Riley Leonard, but I don't see him being a special talent in the NFL. Claw Daddy Arcades. Claw Daddy, I think is going to be sponsoring our spring training trip, I believe. We'll see. I think that's what I heard. But he says Ben Johnson to Chicago, Dennis Allen to join him. Jaguars, Cowboys, and Raiders will be pursuing the remaining available coaches. Will we be left without a seat and a defensive coordinator when the music stops, since all the eggs are in the Saleh basket? Well, here's the thing on that. Possibly. Is Saleh going to get the Jacksonville job? If not, then I would say he's probably going to be the 49ers defensive coordinator. I think the 49ers have gone forward with the idea that they want Robert Saleh, and I don't think they wanted to go interview a bunch of guys knowing they wanted Robert Saleh. But if they don't get Robert Saleh, the PR hit is going to be pretty negative on Brandon Staley. I can tell you that right now. I mean, if the 49ers are unaware, let me make you aware. The 49er fan base is going to be really, really salty if Brandon Staley is the defensive coordinator. Now, he only had 1 year as the defensive coordinator. It was with the Rams. They had a really good defense. I mean, it wasn't like he didn't have success, but he coached corners this year, and Renardo Green developed nicely. I mean, their corners did develop nicely. Demo Lenore swears by him. I don't know enough about Brandon Staley to say what he is. All I can say is that, just the basics of he was in L.A. last year with the Chargers. They gave up 63 points in a game to the Raiders, who had scored, I think, 3 the week before. And then since he departed the Chargers this year with Jesse Minter, who came from Michigan with Harbaugh, they had the best points allowed defense in the league with largely the same cast of players. So, how good of a defensive coach is Brandon Staley? I think that question has to be asked and kind of broken down. But that's the vibe I'm getting, is that some people's vibe is that it will be Saleh or it will be Staley. I think my vibe is that it's going to be Saleh. And then if it's not Saleh, then I think you're going to see the Niners open it up and start interviewing other guys. But they have lost out. If they wanted Lou Anarumo, he's in Indy. If they wanted, a couple guys jumped today. I mean, you don't have Anarumo, you don't have Dennis Allen. He's in Chicago. You're some of the names are coming off the board, so you are losing opportunities. But we don't know who's on their short list, and if it really is Saleh or Staley, or if it's Saleh, and then once Saleh says no or takes a head coaching job, do they interview other guys? And I think that would be my guess. I don't think it's going to be Saleh goes to the Jaguars and Staley's immediately announced. I think they'll open up the search and start talking to a few more guys. Who will be on that list, I don't know. But that's the way I think it's going to go. And I got to think that if the Niners really are willing to pay, I mean, Dennis Allen to me was really intriguing because I really thought, okay, if Saleh doesn't get a job, he's going to get a job in the next cycle. So you're not going to have a lot of continuity long term. Where Dennis Allen, I think, has failed a couple times as a head coach, and I think he probably doesn't get another head coaching job for maybe ever, or maybe for 3 or 4 years, and maybe you could have some continuity with him being your defensive coordinator for 3 or 4 years. But he sounds like he's going to Chicago. So that's another name that's off the board for defensive coordinator. So it sounds like the Niners want Saleh. It sounds like, according to the reports, they want to make him a very high offer and pay him more. So I think the top defensive coordinators are making close to 5. So maybe they're going to offer him 6 or 7. So we'll see. We'll see. I mean, they also interviewed Deshae Townsend. Deshae Townsend played at Alabama, played with the Steelers, won a Super Bowl with the Steelers, is a young man in the coaching game, but he's another name of a guy that they've interviewed thus far. So I don't know. Claudette, I wish I could tell you, but yeah, I mean, there is a chance they would be left without somebody, but they also have Staley in-house, and he's working for them right now. So he's not interviewing with anybody else because he works for them. So I guess they kind of have a spot reserved. But I'm telling you, if you announce Robert Saleh, I think the fans are going to be pretty excited. But if you announce Brandon Staley, just because of the limited knowledge that the fan base has of Brandon Staley and just the optics of seeing Brandon Staley leave the Chargers and have that defense improve after he left, I think is going to make a lot of 49ers fans pretty salty if Staley is the choice. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see where that's going to go. All right. That's going to do it for us. We're just going to do a live video, and thanks to everybody who jumped in. Exciting football game tonight for sure. I think the rest of the week is going to be interesting as well, as far as what news comes out on the 49ers. Make sure you join me tomorrow, Tuesday night, 6 p.m. on Niners Nightly on KMBR, because we are going to start to look ahead to the NFL draft and look ahead to this offseason for the 49ers from a personnel standpoint with a guy who knows an awful lot about it, and that's Matt Miller, who covers the NFL draft for ESPN.com. He's a lifelong Niner fan. He's based out in Missouri, and I texted him. So we're having him on the show tomorrow night at 6:15, and we're going to get his thoughts on the 49ers and get his autopsy on this 6-win season and see what he thinks they need and, what prospects they may be in line for at 11 in round 2, and what he thinks overall of the draft that's, the 2025 draft. To me, just, looking at it, looks like pretty thin on wide receivers. Not a great year for quarterbacks. So if you need a wide receiver, if you need a quarterback, you're probably screwed. But, man, if you need a running back, there's amazing running backs all throughout this draft. If you need a tight end, I think this is one of the best tight end drafts I've seen in the last few years. So a lot of good tight ends, a lot of good running backs, not a lot of receivers, not a lot of quarterbacks. Thanks to Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles for sponsoring the Krug Show tonight. Thanks to Mancini's Sleep World. Once again, whether you shop online or visit in store, use that code KRUG10. You'll get 10% off at any of Mancini's locations or online at sleepworld.com. And, of course, thanks to our good friends at Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. We love Pig and a Pickle. Go check them out. They're in Daly City. They're in Corte Madera. Daly City. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out, and they do run out. So get there early. Go say hi to Damon and Mary. Get some brisket. Get some brisket chili. Tell them I sent you. Have a great night, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. More stuff coming out on the Krug Show. Raj is going to stop by tomorrow night as well from RSF 49ers. We'll talk a little bit with Raj. Looking forward to Matt Miller tomorrow night at 6:15 on KMBR. Join me for that. Have a great night, and thanks for supporting the Krug Show on YouTube.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful.